Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. All right, well, 2022 is going to be a critical year for America. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, along with their nearly 2 million members. The fight to stop out-of-control spending in the president's Build Back Better scheme is far from over, and Congress is plotting more legislation that could hurt our seniors. The midterm elections will be a battle for freedom versus socialism. Unlike liberal groups, AMAC is America's conservative, action-oriented 50-plus organization fighting hard every day here in Washington and across the nation for our seniors. So I'm urging you to choose AMAC now. You will receive all of the great membership benefits, including AMAC discounts on hotels, travels, and restaurants, and your membership will support your conservative values. So go to amac.us/Ellis. That's amac.us/ELLIS to become an AMAC member now.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and I am so delighted to welcome my dear friend who was a colleague on the presidential campaign for Trump-Pence and, of course, worked in the White House and is just an all-around fantastic person, my dear friend Marc, who is now the Chief Communications Officer for AFPI. And Marc, thanks so much for joining me today.
It is so great to see you again, Jenna.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's been too long. Of course, we have been talking throughout, the last, it's now been, it seems like forever since President Trump was in office and we were working on the campaign. But, it's great to finally be on media with you. So for those who aren't aware, but you probably are, it's the America First Policy Institute. So before we get into all of the conversations on the timely topics that we definitely want to get to, explain for people what is going on with AFPI, what areas you're focused on, and everything that Brooke Rollins is doing, because she is just a fantastic person. I've had her on the show before, but now you are working with AFPI. So what all are you focused on?
Well, it's really great to be with the organization, and because if we're going to be successful long term, we've got to build out the America First policies beyond just one individual person. And obviously we all love, one individual person, but we've got to be about what he's fighting for. And that's the way we endure. Brooke, when she was in the White House in the waning days of the Trump administration, realized that we had all of this talent, all of these great minds who were standing there toe-to-toe with the president, fighting for all the things that mattered to American people. But if we didn't do something, they were going to do what all administrations do when they leave. They're going to go become consultants. They're going to go write their books, and they were going to go all scattered to the wind. And so the idea came. Larry Kudlow was on board. Obviously, the former president was on board to create the America First Policy Institute to really put the backbone behind the policies that he was championing. That way, if you're running for dog catcher, state house, White House, you can become an America First candidate by just getting on board with this. So we're doing the white papers, the deep dive research, the things that need to be done. So when you get elected to office, whether you're, again, at the Capitol, whether you're at the State House or City Hall, you can actually look at the research, tailor it for your specific race, your specific office, and truly champion the America First agenda, moving beyond just 2022 or 2024. This is meant to endure.
And that's such a great vision for an organization because, of course, we all learned through working with President Trump and with his administration that it is all about America First and making sure to harness the integrity and the understanding of these great ideals that he so well articulated with all of the people that he had surrounding him to make sure that now once, a lot of those people now are in the private sector, at least who worked in the administration, but of course can support ultimately people who come back into office or people who are newly in office. And so to make sure that we don't lose sight of that vision and what trajectory President Trump wants to set America on while he was in office, but leaving that whole legacy. I was just talking to another friend about, I think one of President Trump's most lasting legacies is going to be the federal bench and all of the great, phenomenal judges that he appointed. But policy matters as well, of course, in the legislative and executive branches on both the federal and local levels. So for people who want to get more engaged with AFPI, if they're a candidate, what can they do and how can they get engaged with America First Policy Institute?
Well, you can go to americafirstpolicy.com. We have all of our research up there. We have 21 policy centers. Each of them are led by former senior officials in the White House. We have, I believe, 6 former cabinet secretaries, 8 former White House senior staffers, all putting their minds together around these broad areas, whether it's putting American freedom first, American jobs first, American workers first, whether it's trade, the environment, the economy, energy. There is someone there that is putting the deep dive on the research, the policies. Go there, read the information, see what you can do, because being America First is not just saying, I like President Trump. We all like President Trump. Let's fight for what he was fighting for, to bring back American energy independence, to bring back free and reciprocal trade agreements, and all of the things that he was championing. And it's going to endure long beyond. There will be a time, I know we hate to think about it, there will be a time when Donald Trump's name's not on the ballot, but you can still fight for what he was fighting for.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the new Reaganism in that sense that, obviously, Reagan, my mom went to vote for President Reagan's second term a couple of days after I was born. And yet his ideas and values and the things that he championed have still lived on in the hearts and minds and policy of a lot of conservatives. And so that type of legacy, I believe an even greater legacy is what President Trump has built with his first 4 years in office, and I say first 4 years, but then also so much greater and so much further, like you said, beyond even 2024. And so one of those things, Marc, is all about free speech. And you wrote an article that you sent to me the other day that I thought so well articulated the principles of free speech. And so why is that such an important tension point, do you think, right now in American society and culture, and looking at what's going on Twitter and Elon Musk and Section 230 and all of these things that everyone seems to be so either cheering from one side or really, really scared, like the Joy Reids and the leftists of the world?
Well, and I think that's the scary thing that we see. I mean, it's easy for us to talk about cancel culture and make it a bumper sticker. But the problem is, and the challenge that we face, especially as America First conservatives, is that the answer to cancel culture is just not canceling the other side. And so that was really the point I was trying to get across. I mean, I remember a day, and I used a quote from one of my favorite movies, from a few years ago, The American President, where a liberal president, played by Michael Douglas, talked about if you want to champion free speech, then you have to stand there and recognize the right of someone to say something that absolutely makes your blood boil, while you can also argue while they are wrong. And so I can stand there and I can have that debate and I can recognize your ability to say something I completely disagree with. Doesn't mean that I am supporting it, but I can support your right to say it. I'm going to argue with you about it, but that's the way we should be. So the answer to cancel culture is just not, let's cancel the left. They do cancel us, and that's what Elon Musk and that's what we face, whether it's on national television or whether it's in social media. But the answer is free speech, and even if Americans are wrong, they should still have the right to express that opinion, that freedom of speech. It's guaranteed to us, not by the government. Those are our inalienable rights that we are talking about, that we are all born with. It doesn't come from what the social media tech executives want or what the Biden administration wants. It's our right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so well articulated in your piece. And I loved that you quoted The American President. That's actually one of my favorite movies. And that last speech that he gives is such a great encapsulation of why free speech matters and that we can and should debate all of these things. And of course, the Constitution that separates and limits government powers is very clear. And the whole point is so that we all equally can then exercise the rights that are given by God our Creator. And we can freely disagree and debate, and policy should be debated. It should be a matter of the public forum and also a matter of who we elect and select and prefer to be in elected office. I mean, that's what it means to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, that we the people get to select and prefer who's in office. And so as we're looking at who is in office right now and who unfortunately is being led around by the Easter Bunny in the White House, and Joe Biden and all of that whole administration, a lot of people are very concerned, Marc, about the economy. They're really concerned about inflation. They're concerned especially about the supply chain issues and whether or not that will get worse. What is your take on the current state of things? And do Americans have any reason to be optimistic going into 2022, or do we have to kind of wait until after the midterms?
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. And, here in, just within, a few days, we learned that the economy actually contracted in the first quarter. Many economists, and including some of the brilliant economic minds here at the America First Policy Institute, they were telling me early in the week that, well, they thought that growth would be maybe a little under 1%. Most people expected it to be under 1%. But then to see the number come out, negative 1.4% for the quarter. And what that means is we're halfway to a recession. And by the way, we're actually in, obviously, in the middle of the second quarter. So you could almost argue, while it hasn't been reported yet, that if things don't get any better, we are now living in a recession, which will be confirmed sometime, 3-4 months down the road. Those are the kinds of words that matter to people. I mean, they recognize the higher gas prices. They see the higher prices of groceries and everything. That's very real for them. But then when you tack on the word recession, we know what that means. That means negative economic growth. Our economy is contracting. And that's such a difference from what it was just a few short years ago, especially right before the pandemic struck, when our economy was literally on fire, when the economists were saying, no, Donald Trump can't get the economy growing that quickly, and then he exceeded those expectations, and well, that's not what we really meant. So it's now shrinking under Joe Biden. And we always used to talk that elections have consequences. Well, these are the consequences. In just a matter of 14 or 15 months, we have gone from $2 a gallon gas to now over $4, $6 and $7 in some places. We've gone from people not being able to afford their groceries, sky-high rent, rising interest rates, and now an economy that is getting smaller. And when an economy gets smaller, that means fewer jobs, fewer opportunities. And so elections matter. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting better because Chuck Schumer just got on the Senate floor here in recent days and said the answer to high inflation is more tax increases, which, I mean, did they take Economics 101? You don't raise taxes because what are companies going to do except pass along the higher taxes to the consumer through higher prices?
Right. Well, and whether or not they took Economics 101, they clearly don't care. And that is the difference between all of these elitists like the Chuck Schumers of the world and the Democrats who are so focused on appeasing China and some of these other things on the national stage and all of the globalization of how they want to just tear down our borders. They don't want to have America first. And part of the reason that President Trump coined that term in the context that we use it now, of course, as conservatives, is to say, he's the president of America, not for the rest of the world. And there is such a difference in that mindset between a lot of the Washington elites, and some on both sides, even some Republicans that look more toward globalism, than looking at the things that are actually best for Americans. And so when we look at the border as well, it's actually surprising to me that some of the Republicans, like Greg Abbott, for example, who is complaining about the border, but yet won't harness the power that he actually has under Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution to secure his own border in Texas. And so, where do you see the America First on a state level? That for these border states that can help, and where are things at on the federal level as well?
Well, and I think that's one of the things where we're seeing a lot of innovation and a lot of leadership from our state elected officials. Just a week or so ago, we had a big policy summit in Atlanta where we did a deep dive on all of these various policy issues. I actually moderated a panel with the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, along with Chad Wolf, who's our executive director, former acting Secretary of Homeland Security under President Trump, and also Rodney Scott, who was the head of the Border and Customs Patrol. And they were talking about the steps that Texas is having to take because the federal government won't do their job, and how it's costing Texas, I believe, $600 million coming out of the state budget to do the job that the federal government should be doing. And the way Governor Patrick talked about it was, look, that's $600 million that is not going into roads and bridges. It's not going into the education system in Texas. It's money I have to take out of the state budget to divert to the border because the federal government won't do its job. And it's true also in other border states. It's also one of the reasons why you see so many of these border communities who have a tendency of having voted blue. They're now shifting quickly to become red, and you even see a number of Democrats coming out against President Biden's plan to eliminate Title 42 because they know what a disaster it's going to be. By one estimate, we are going to add the city, a population the same size as the city of Atlanta, between now and the end of September if Title 42 is removed.
That is so insane, and I think just completely a dereliction of duty to the oath of office that Joe Biden took. I mean, even if he doesn't remember it and he doesn't remember any of the words, he still took it. And, the Easter Bunny probably knows it better than he does. But, as we're looking at this whole scope of the administration and all of these things, what can we look forward to in terms of better policy, in your opinion, Marc, when hopefully there is that red wave in the midterms and we at least have Republicans who are taking back control of Congress and the Senate and in key positions on the state and local level as well?
Well, I think first and foremost, and that's what we're preparing for here at the America First Policy Institute. We're putting together actually detailed policies that could be turned into legislation that could be passed by Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate starting in early 2023, which will then also lay the groundwork for the return of the America First agenda nationally when we get an America First president back in the White House. But the one thing I would say most that gives me the most amount of hope, and you weren't alive for it, I remember it, but we endured Jimmy. If it weren't for Jimmy Carter, we wouldn't have got Ronald Reagan. If Jimmy Carter had been competent, it wouldn't have ushered in the Reagan Revolution. And so that's what we have to remember. And I think, by the way, we should stop comparing President Biden to President Carter. It's unfair to President Carter, but it will, both of them, I believe, will usher in that new America First leadership that while I understand people may not have always loved the style,
Right,
But they liked
right.
the policies and they loved the results. And now they can see plainly in their pocketbooks, in their neighborhoods, what it means when you vote the other way. And I'm confident they are going to go back to those America First principles because it was better for their kids, their neighborhoods, their families, their jobs, their economy. And on a national stage, America was strong again.
Yeah, absolutely. And even things that the Democrats are trying to and they're having to change their messaging on, like saying, "Oh, we're actually for defunding the police," because they're seeing what a disaster that has been and how many people of their own base they're totally losing because of these utterly failed policies and all of these woke types of ideologies that led to the rise of Governor Youngkin in Virginia and what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. I mean, obviously there's a couple of things I disagree with him down there, but overall he is a fantastic governor. And, these types of wins and these types of voters who are standing up in states, I mean, people forget how close the race in Florida was between Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis. And if Republicans hadn't shown up, we would not have the free state of Florida that we do. We wouldn't have this spearhead of Ron DeSantis in Florida because we would have had a Florida that looked probably a lot like New York or California. So every race matters. And of course, everyone is very much looking forward to 2024 and getting an America First president back in the White House. But on the state and local level as well, I think people are waking up to the whole idea of federalism and why state sovereignty matters and why all of these things absolutely matter. So when it comes to elections and to election integrity, that's another one of the huge issues. Where do you see the groundwork and the game and the borders and all of that in the election integrity scope moving forward, even to the midterms?
Well, we're doing a lot of work at the America First Policy Institute, led by our friend and former campaign colleague Hogan Gidley and Ken Blackwell, who was the Secretary of State in the great state of Ohio, to actually change laws in the states at the state level, because obviously, the states control the elections. And we've actually put up a map recently, very recently, in the last, I'd say, month or so, where you can go online and state by state see what kind of election integrity laws exist in your home state. It's color-coded, green, yellow, red. Green means you've got the basics that we believe are the important things, like a strong photo ID law, like banning Zuckerbucks, like banning ballot harvesting. So all of those basics, and you can see where your state ranks. Yellow states have a few of the things, but they could still be stronger. And then, of course, you have the People's Republic of California and others that are red. They basically welcome anyone in to vote, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen. And so, but these are the kinds of resources, and we are working with state lawmakers at the state level to get those things passed, because the best thing we can do is we can learn from the lessons of 2020 to not allow it to happen again. And so if that's the greatest lesson, then let's learn from it. Let's strengthen that, because I don't care if you're red or you're blue or how you plan to vote. I want every American to vote legally once.
Yes, and have every legal vote count and count fairly.
Correct.
And, for the people in 2020 who were so frustrated and are still so frustrated, sometimes the right and correct and true facts do not prevail. And sometimes the right does not prevail. And I'm talking about truthful, not just right in terms of party. But sometimes you don't always win the battle, but ultimately we're trying to win the war. And election integrity is an issue that has to persist and has to continue to move forward. And I'm really glad to see that so many people have woken up to the fact that this actually is a really big issue, because people were working on election integrity, well before 2020, but it's really difficult to get people excited about something that seems like such a wonky issue until they saw exactly the consequences of that. And they saw the consequences of lawfare, and they saw the consequences of when the law is just completely disregarded in some states or wielded by the executive branch that overrides the legislature unconstitutionally. I mean, all of these things now are first and foremost in the front of the American people's mind. And so this is the time to go and make sure that we are securing the vote and we're implementing not only these types of policies, but we're actually making sure that the elections are administered according to state law. So all of these things are so important. And Marc, in just the last few minutes that I have with you here, because all of these topics are so incredibly important, what is AFPI focused on in terms of any other issue that you think is really important for my listeners to know that maybe we haven't touched on or isn't really being talked about in the mainstream media?
Well, I think first and foremost, especially when we see what's going on in the world right now, and we actually just had a very big event today featuring Senator Ted Cruz, and then also 4 of our leading experts in foreign policy, including former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe, General Keith Kellogg, Fred Fleitz, and Steve Yates, who heads our China initiative, about what America foreign policy means. And Senator Cruz really framed it well. He's like, some people are hawkish and they want American boots on the ground, nation building, and some are isolationists, believing, no, America should put its head in the sand, and if it doesn't affect us, we've got oceans that protect us, let's stay out of it. And I think he adequately, or he very expertly said, no, it's actually in between. What is America's best interest? What is in the best interest of Americans? And
what is America first, actually?
What is America first? And it doesn't always mean putting boots on the ground. It's important for us to have Putin lose because he's our enemy. But it doesn't mean we're going to put boots on the ground in the Ukraine. What it does mean is that we should be, and the administration should more rapidly be, helping Ukraine win its own war. We need to do the same thing when it comes to confronting China. We don't want to get into a shooting war with China, but we do need to make sure that we contain them and that our allies and friends in the region have the technology, have the resources to be able to do it. And when it comes to us confronting them, we actually have more leverage because of our economic ties to China than we do with Russia. I mean, nobody buys anything from Russia except caviar. But so we need to use our leverage where we can. Encourage and support our allies where they can. We're not putting our head in the sand, but it doesn't always mean we put boots on the ground until America's security is truly threatened.
Mm-hmm. And that was so well said by Senator Cruz, because it tends to be this kind of black or white, all or nothing kind of dynamic when the mainstream media oversimplifies these types of issues, and especially when, as you and I well know, in the maybe 30 seconds you might have on primetime of a major news network to articulate these positions, and it's a lot more nuanced and complex than that. And we need to take a reasoned and strategic approach to things rather than just saying it's all or nothing, or we have to be fearful or hawkish, or one of these sort of bipolar opposites. And so to listen to these types of things and to have AFPI that is doing this very granular level research and giving wings and a voice to continuing on what President Trump started and what he continued on from the legacy of Ronald Reagan and from, and ultimately from our founders. I mean, he's one, you know just as much as I do how much, he loves the Constitution and America's founding, and how much he loves history, and how much he loves the people who have made America great. And that's ultimately what we have to do as citizens and also as elected officials in government positions, is to make sure that we are continuing on that legacy of liberty and the liberty and justice for all, and being America first. And so, Marc, thanks so much for joining me today. And again, where can people follow you? Where can they get all of these resources from AFPI and anything else upcoming? I know I'm going to see you in Florida very soon for our friend Dinesh D'Souza and his movie premiere. Looking forward to that. But what else is coming up on your radar?
Well, right now we're trying to build out the policy framework that's going to take us across the finish line in November and beyond and set the stage. You can go to americafirstpolicy.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Marc with a C_Lauder, and we're going to keep at it. But the one thing we've got to have everybody do, make sure that when a candidate at any level of office comes and asks for your vote, ask them where they stand on America First, and not just whether they'll put it on a bumper sticker, about whether they will actually go and fight for it, vote for it once they get, or if they get elected to office. That's the best thing we can do.
Yeah, and that's so well said. Can you articulate it? Because Make America Great Again and America First, as you and I well know, was not just a campaign slogan or an administration slogan for President Trump. It had meaning, it had policy, it had an agenda for the American people behind it. And so can these candidates actually articulate those positions, or are they just trying to ride the president's coattails? Because I think a lot of people they have this understanding, they like the dynamic, but especially for these elected positions, they really need to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. So very well said. And thanks so much, Marc. I look forward to having you on again soon to talk about even more.
Absolutely. See you soon, Jenna.
Thanks. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast, and that, of course, is my good friend Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99, but you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great discounts, but use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna.